Hello and thanks for joining the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Nifemi Okuntoye. Today on the program, federal government, Labour reach deal on new minimum wage, avoid strike. Saraki decries use of $1.05 billion NLNG dividends for fuel subsidy, expands probe. Southwest governors raised the alarm over Apapa the gridlock, say it's a threat to nation's economy. And later on the show, the federal government feeds pupils with 6 million eggs, 594 cows weekly under the school feeding program. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Wahid Bakari, and Emeka Madunago. Journalist Hangout starts now. Well, it was the legendary Afrobeat king, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who once said in one of his instructive lyrics that Nigerian government is capable of enacting magic. Just when Nigerians were already bracing for an impending strike by organized labor over a new minimum wage, government waved its magic wand and averted the strike at the very last hour. After a marathon meeting of the Tripartite Committee in Abuja on Monday, the federal government and organized labor reached a deal on the new minimum wage and avoided the planned strike. So we're looking forward to see what happens next in this intractable process. Gentlemen, it's interesting how it play out. Let me begin with Babajide. What do you think transpired behind closed doors? The meeting held for hours yesterday.
Yeah, the federal government must have felt that it will make no sense to let the strike happen because the economy is not doing quite well. Nigerians are really suffering at this time. So anything that will inflict a greater burden on the Nigerian people should not be allowed to happen. And just as I said yesterday, I was confident that the government will not allow that strike to happen. They will do whatever it takes to avert it because of the monumental damage that it will inflict on our country. And that's exactly what the government has done. Frankly, when we talk about labor matters and the minimum wage, it is firmly in the court of the federal government. And when we're talking about tripartite committee, the tripartite committee has no place for governors because it recognizes the government, labor, and employers. So talking about employers, we're talking about the National Employers Consultative yes, NECA.
Private sector.
Yes, to take care of the private sector. Then workers, and then government. Government, in this case, state governors are subsumed under government.
That's right.
So it is the federal government that is recognized, not the state government. So whatever the state governors want is immaterial. It is what the federal government agrees that the state governors are duty-bound to
pay.
Implement. That's the way it is with even international conventions and in Nigeria. So for governors to come out and say, look, this is what we can pay, it's not in their hands. It's not for them to determine what's to be paid. It is the federal government that has the power to take that decision.
Interestingly, Wahid, state governments are also employers. As a matter of fact, many of them defaulting on the 18,000 naira minimum wage. There are reports that two figures emerged from last night's meeting. Are we walking on eggshells?
Well, I think they will find a middle course around this, and one interesting thing about yesterday's meeting was that, for the first time in recent time, I think finance minister was also in attendance. Likewise, the budget and planning, economic planning minister, unlike in the past where it is only the minister of labor that is always attending. So I think they will be able to find a middle course between 22,500 and 30,000 naira, based on what we have seen so far. I think it's a good thing that, like Jide said, that they didn't allow the strike to go on. It would have been terribly bad on the part of the government to have allowed that thing to continue, especially now that we are approaching the election year. It is also well known that most of the workers, what they get at the moment cannot really take them home. And they have been saying this for quite a long time. So I think this time around there will be a way around this for them to be able to avoid the strike. For instance, somebody called me yesterday night, and I was still telling the person that the strike is likely to go on. Until when I realized I had to call the person back that they have been able to find a way around it.
Emeka, let's look at the track record of the federal government. ASU, for instance, they seem to have signed a memorandum of understanding. Federal government promised to pay. 2009. Even in 2017, the federal government promised to pay like 220 billion naira by October. ASU is right back on strike now. We are waiting for a declaration by Mr. President. But beyond declaring a figure, there's still the issue of capacity and ability to pay.
Well, interestingly, the term you use, capacity, ability to pay, reminds me of what the former national chairman of APC, Chief John Oyegun, said when he was governor of Edo State. There was this kind of issue, and he said agreement to pay is not the same thing as ability to pay. That was then. Now, down to the issue. You see, it has been said on this program, it has been said by well-meaning Nigerians again and again that there are many areas where government needs to cut costs, where government needs to cut down on certain things, that the Nigerian worker needs to be put first. I remember we discussed it on one edition of this program. The Nigerian worker should be given a better, deal by government. Nigerian workers should not be treated like his or her due is just a favor, is a privilege. It is a right enshrined in the constitution of the country. And then, talking about track record, you see, this government has continued a very unfortunate tradition, inherited from previous governments, signing agreements without the intention, without that clear resolve to keep in fidelity with its declarations, with its promises, with its pledges. And that does not make it look serious. This ASU issue ought to have been dealt with by now, but unfortunately, in fact, interestingly, this ASU issue was on front burner when some of us were in the university. And now we have left the university, we have given birth to children, they are growing, and this issue is still there. So does it mean it's a transgenerational thing, as in what our parents saw, we are likely to see it? I think things like this, government needs to sit down and deal with these issues, because you see, ASU is on strike right now. And then you're talking of concluding negotiation, concluding action, not negotiation, but concluding action on a new minimum wage, which will definitely affect what you have agreed with ASU. You see, when I came into the studio, there was a question I asked. I said, does it mean that prisoners, inmates in Nigerian prisons are better recognized than Nigerian workers? Because the Minister of Interior said some months ago that the Nigerian government spends 10 billion yearly on feeding prisoners. And if you check...
Have you scrutinized what he said?
No, well, if you check the figure, if you break it down, then what it means is that prisoners are fed on, each prisoner is fed on 14,000 naira daily. Yeah. Now,
that's why I'm asking, as what he said really been scrutinized?
Well,
because
that's up to
it's difficult for anyone to...
No, of course, Nigerians have taken him up, but we've not got any feedback from the minister.
No, since he said it, he's not come back to say, I stand by what I...
And he has not even come back to say he was
misquoted.
misquoted. But what I'm even looking at is...
the kind of food that prisoners have been fed with in Nigeria.
Let's even say that, going by what he said, since he has not denied it, now, 14,000 naira per prisoner every day. So in 2 days, you already have 28,000. Now, 14,000 is almost the 18,000 naira it's just 4,000 naira lesser than the 18,000 naira minimum wage, which is currently being paid.
That's right.
So what you're talking about now is, where does the Nigerian worker stand?
Let's talk about the negotiation and bargaining process under the canopy of the Tripartite Committee. They've been on it for close to a year now.
Yeah.
At some point, the committee was suspended indefinitely. What lessons are there to learn? Because in the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to be right back where we are right now.
You see, going back a little bit to the position of the governors that, we can only pay 22,000 and all that. The tripartite committee had zonal hearings, and governors had opportunities to send memos, to the hearing, or even send representatives. A lot of them simply ignored that opportunity. People like Governor Yari, for example, it's not on record that he sent anyone to that committee, to the hearing of the tripartite committee. At that time, if they had done that, they would have been able to marshal their own position to say, look, this is what we can afford. Because the way it is, they have always wanted the matter of wages of workers moved to the concurrent list, away from the exclusive list.
That's right.
But workers oppose that. And why do workers oppose that? Workers oppose that because they feel that if state governments are allowed to
Determine how much
determine the minimum wage for their workers, who then takes care of the people in the private sector? So that's why they believe that, it has to be one minimum wage and decided just the same way this has been decided. I think that we wasted so much time in arriving at this conclusion. Because if you recall, even after the president set up the tripartite committee, for 3 months there was no meeting. And governors were deliberately staying away from the meetings, just as the Minister of Labor said. The president merely wanted governors to have a feeling of representation. Otherwise, he didn't have to allow them to be represented by 6 governors from the 6 geopolitical zones, because clearly the International Convention recognizes government as one leg of the tripod that should sit and decide on this matter. And governors are brought, state governors are brought under the federal government. So it was a decision for the federal government to make, not a decision for governors. So except we invariably now amend our constitution to allow states to determine a minimum wage for their workers.
Okay.
All this idea of saying, it's unfair for federal government or anyone to choose a minimum wage for states, it's immaterial, because the Constitution stipulates that there shall be a minimum wage.
After all, it's the minimum.
Yes, a minimum, there shall be a minimum wage. So we just have to go by the rules. We just have to obey the rules. The issue of, let us have restructuring, no, not at this time. Let's not, we distract ourselves too much. We journalists are also even guilty of that. Yeah. First things first, let's determine a minimum wage for our people.
That's right.
And then once we are through with that, we move to something else.
That's right.
With that, we can take up the conversation over restructuring or even fiscal federalism later on. But let labor at least finish with this battle. And I'm happy because we have reached a kind of resolution and everyone appears to be happy. It looks clear now that at least labor has been able to hammer out a deal that will ensure that workers get above what even the federal government was talking about a few days back, which is 24,500. So everyone appears to be happy. We've been able to avert a strike. and we're looking forward to another minimum wage in is it 5 years time?
Yes,
2023. No, because this one, this one we are late by 2 years.
That's right.
So are they going to roll it back a little bit?
I like the way you put
Maybe 3
Babaji
years,
there. You are kind of conclusive that already we've reached an agreement. Of course, the chairman of the tripartite committee is
No,
supposed
the
to
report is ready. The
present
report
the
is
document
ready.
to the president.
It was supposed to be presented at 4:15.
4:15.
I don't know whether the president...
The president is currently meeting with the Duke and Duchess of...
Yes, I don't know whether
Cornwall.
that will have altered the president's plans.
Okay.
But the president will receive that report today.
There's also still the process of transmitting it to the National Assembly.
That one
And
is
all of
mere
that.
formality.
It's all right.
Let it get to the president and let the figure that workers will be happy with
Be declared.
Be given to the president. People are speculating that two figures. No, it's one. The report has just one figure, and I'm confident that it's the 30,000 that the workers.
That was
They
the
will
only
confirm
condition
it.
that Labour
They will
gave.
confirm it that a particular figure has been picked.
Yes.
Nigeria is just
But
waiting
Ama
for...
people was saying that it was 24,000 and 30,000. So
I'm particularly concerned about the timing of this agreement. It came in few hours before the November the 6th deadline. Some are saying that this further confirms the fact that the threat of industrial action is only the language that government understands.
Of course, like we said, it will have amounted to a sort of suicide if government had allowed it. You can imagine the backlash that it will have had. Such it will have on government by now. It will have given the opportunity to the opposition party to tongue-lash them again. Now, why allow people to go on strike? The kind of economy that we run is such that there are so many people in Nigeria today that they earn their income on a daily basis. So you cannot imagine the kind of effect that will have on a lot of... When they say people should go out to the market and stockpile foodstuff, the question is, where are they going to get the money from?
That's
a
right.
lot of people rely on daily income, to make ends meet. So it will have been disastrous if they have gone on that strike, and I think it shows that is the only language governments will understand. When you threat them with strike, I won't be surprised by the next few days they'll find a way around the issue of this ASU strike too, because it's not a good thing. People are already complaining about it that why is it that the time that the labor union want to go on strike is also coinciding with the time that the ASU is on strike.
That's right.
It's not good for the government, and I think they also realize it. That's why they quickly move to avoid the strike.
Emeka, we have to wrap this up now. Are you optimistic as well that President Buhari will declare the 30,000 naira figure
well,
that Labour is talking about?
Well, I cannot second guess him, but I'm not in his mind. But I won't believe that with the extensive nature of the discussion, the last point of negotiations took 10 hours. I want to believe that with the extensive discussions that he will get 30,000, he will give them 30,000 naira or something
very
close
very
to
close
it.
to
But
it.
at least they moved from 22,500 with Nigerians flatly rejected, with Labour and Nigerians flatly rejected, moved to 24,000. Maybe they might get to 26 or 27,000, or even like Jide said, 30,000. But for me, it should go beyond just figures.
That's all right.
We need to do something about the welfare of Nigerian workers.
We have to move on now. I'm actually wondering the kind of haggling that took place for 10 hours. But we have to talk something else.
Calculators and all that.
Nigeria's oil and gas sector, though the nation's economic lifewire, has been dubbed the den of corruption. The irony is that the more government beams its searchlight to clean the rot, the more cabals perpetrate deals that assault citizens' collective reasoning. In another probe into activities of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC), the Senate Ad Committee probing unauthorized spending in the oil sector uncovered more irregularities. NNPC Group Managing Director May Kante Baru had claimed before the committee that the corporation diverted $1.05 billion revenue of Nigeria liquefied natural gas and LNG to payment of fuel subsidy. Senate President Bukola Saraki faulted use of the money for fuel subsidy instead of paying it into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. He said the Senate would thoroughly investigate the matter, vowing that there will be no cover-up. Let me begin with you, Emeka, on this. In February 2018, the former Minister of Finance attempted to clear the air, saying that Nigeria does not technically pay subsidy to oil marketers. According to her, the money that we're paying is to take care of the under-recovery from the loss incurred in importation. And she said precisely that this money is the money that should have been shared among the 3 tiers of government. I mean, why did it take that long to begin to beam our searchlight on where NNPC was getting the money from?
Oh, of course. The truth had to come out one way or the other because she was just trying to make a play on words. I mean, what is under recovery? What is subsidy? What's the difference? Just like talking about...
They've given us so many names.
It's just like calling 6, half a dozen. You know, but we know it's 6.
You know what the Minister of State calls it is an operating loss.
So, and you know, there are
It
so
is
many
subsidy.
There are so many terms for it. But the sad thing is that this government, when it was campaigning, it said it would do something about subsidy, that it will end subsidy.
You almost said there was no subsidy.
That there was no subsidy, that all that was being paid, that was being reportedly paid as subsidy, was just being put into the pockets of people.
That's right.
The same government came in along the line, admitted that actually there were subsidy payments to be made when oil marketers threatened to shut their stations to, go on strike. Of course, like my brother Waid said, that's the language government understands, So now, the bills, have been piling up. And you've been looking for a way, one way or the other, from denying that there was subsidy to admitting that there was subsidy. Now, you suddenly found a creative way to fund the subsidy, but it's an illegal way. Because the same constitution, like today talks about, you must adhere to it unless it is reviewed. When the constitution is not reviewed and you do anything, particularly on the issue of revenue, it is illegal. It is a diversion. And I don't know if you accuse previous governments of corruption, then I don't know what to call this. I don't know what to call this other than corruption, because when you spend money without due appropriation by the National Assembly, then you may need to, like the former Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, find some creative words, some under-recovery-like words.
It's all right. Wahid, sometime in October this year, the landing cost of PMS imported into the country rose to 205 naira per litre. There are some who would say that even the amount we're paying right now, I think it's 143 thereabout, is not in tandem at all.
145?
I mean, 145
Yes.
with the reality on ground. How exactly do we expect NNPC to have managed it if it wasn't using some kind of money?
I think the point we need to make clear is that, the fact that you have good intention does not mean you should do something illegal, because the law is very clear on it. And we have always suspected, a lot of Nigerians have always suspected that NNPC has become a conduit pipe for corruption. And the more we say it, the more they give credence to that saying.
The more they get worse.
And this is another classic example. 1.05 billions. This is money that belongs to three tiers of government.
That's right.
And somebody, single-handedly deep inside in that money and started using it without operation under the pretext that, look, when we had the last scarcity, I was advised by the National Assembly, to look for whatever means to make sure that Nigerians, have enough supply of petrol. That's not enough for you to do something that is illegal. No, it is very clear.
It's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse. The man has done what is unexpected of him, and it is also a good thing that they are now coming out. I mean, the National Assembly has come out to probe it. I think we need to get to the root of this crisis. Every time they keep saying that there is no subsidy. There is no subsidy, but we know that.
You and I know
it's a lie. Like they will say, it's a lie from the pit of hell. You know, they keep saying it, and unfortunately, we continue to have increase in fuel price, and you say there is no subsidy. Then you now find a way around it. You know, to say there is, you look for one name. It's all about semantics. You know, anybody can coin any name to suit whatever they have done. You know, but that does not make it right, and in this case, it is not right.
Babajide, the NNPC GMD said this was done in compliance with directive from the National Assembly. I'm wondering if the Minister of Petrol is complicit in all of this.
He has to be aware, but if you know that Mekanti Baru has been acting like is not responsible to the minister. He sees himself as a rock star who should just report to the president. You remember what happened the last time when the minister was forced to do a memo to the president? He wanted to see the president, couldn't see the president for months, and then that memo leaked to the press, clearly showing that, and even in matters of contract awards and all that, that the minister, that the NNPC GMD was not reporting to him, was not even carrying him along.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Babajide. The last time I checked, I thought Mr. President was the Minister of Petroleum.
Yes, the Minister of State.
Of State.
The Minister of State.
Of course, is
the Minister of State should supervise the NNPC GMD.
That's all right.
The Minister of State is the junior minister to the president. You and I know that the job that the president should be doing, it is the Minister of State that does the job. Is the one who goes to the meetings of OPEC. Buhari does not attend OPEC meetings. Is the one who understands latest issues about the global oil sector. That's right. Buhari does not understand those issues, except we are deceiving ourselves. Current trends, the deals that we were able to hammer out to give us opportunity to produce more, even at a time when some countries are being compelled to reduce their output. You understand? So that the prices, we can keep prices of crude oil in the international community relatively high. It's still Kachiku that sat in those meetings and hammered out those deals. It's not Buhari. He has no time to go and attend OPEC meetings. He has no such time. So he is just Minister of Petroleum, like a honorary minister, just operating by name as minister. The people do the job are Mekanti Baru and the Minister of State. So naturally, Mekanti Baru should report to the Minister of State. But if the president chooses to empower Mekanti Baru and make him feel like that he is indeed a rock star, then this kind of things will be happening. Where the Minister of State should say, look, let's not do this, it will bring problems. He will not even get a chance to know that that thing is about to happen. Because there is someone who thinks that, oh, let me just report to the president. Remember what happened even during the hearing on fuel scarcity in the Senate. Both of them contradicted themselves. While Mekanti Baru was lying to his country that there was no supply, we didn't have supply issues, Kachiku eventually admitted that they had supply issues. Right there on that floor, I watched both men talking. And while one chose to lie to his countrymen and women, the other one tacitly, because oil marketers provided proof that showed that supply tapered down from November 2016. I mean, we live in a world where you can only fool yourself. Ultimately, the truth will catch up with you.
Oh, sure.
So the insufficient supply was the reason for the scarcity that we had back then, and Kachiku eventually had to admit. So look at the situation that we find ourselves. You cannot spend money without appropriation. There has to be appropriation. Nobody is saying that we should not sustain the subsidy regime, because I've said before on this program that if Buhari increases fuel price, he will not be re-elected. It's as simple as that. No matter how popular he is, he will not be re-elected if he increases fuel price at this time. So he knows it. He will do his best to keep the price where it is. And that will entail paying subsidy. They may call it under recovery. They may call it operating loss. Let them call it any other name. But they dare not touch the fuel price. My belief is that the prediction of Fire Shade that they are going to increase to 180 something, well, how much it even? Yes, around 180 something. In the interest of their political careers, they will not dare it.
It's all right, gentlemen.
It should remain. Should remain the way it is. Call it whatever you want to call it, but you have no right to go and spend money meant for the 3 tiers of government without appropriation. In fact, without the Senate.
We'll get back to this, gentlemen. Let us take a break now. There's also the issue of the NNPC being a sole importer for the past 1 year. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're still talking about the issue surrounding the fuel subsidy and, of course, the Senate probe into the diversion of $1.05 billion that was supposed to be for the Nigerian liquefied natural gas. Let me come to you very quickly, Emeka, as we begin to talk about the capacity. How much faith do you have in the Senate to probe this issue and come to a logical conclusion?
That issue is explosive at this time of the year, just close to the elections.
Close to an election.
Campaigns will begin on November 18, and I'm sure that this is going to be a major campaign issue because it's just unfortunate that this government keeps giving its critics reasons to expose its refusal to adhere to the Constitution. To adhere to constitutional provisions, you know. And the sad thing about it is this. Clearly, Barrow's excuse is untenable because by saying that the Senate asks you, that's the legislature. How can the legislature ask you to violate the Constitution that it's supposed to be operating by on which it stands, to operate, its power of checks and balances.
Let me just hold you for a minute to take this call. Yakub is calling from Lagos.
Yeah,
welcome,
thank
Yakub.
you. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Babajide.
Good evening.
I really love what Babajide said earlier. But for me, this is my own personal opinion as a Nigerian citizen. I can't wait for Dangote refinery to come up because I always ask myself a question. We call ourselves a giant of Africa. I wonder why we cannot have a refinery that can give us what we use, what we consume. In fact, look at landing costs. It is landing costs are giving us all this problem.
Right.
What are we paying for? We are paying for landing costs. We have these resources, we send it out of the country, and then we buy it again. It is unfortunately. But for Kantibaru, I think the Senate should go ahead and probe that guy because you are spending money that made for 3 tiers of government. Yes, whatever language you call that, you have to let it follow the due process. And then if they find him guilty of anything, he should be going, law should catch up with him. That is it. Thank you, God bless you.
Thank you very much, Yakub, for your contribution. Let's just move ahead with this conversation. He made mention about the possibility of political coloration in a pre-election year. How much faith do you have in the Senate to probe this issue?
I think they will really probe it. Like he said, I want to align with what he said, because of the fact that this is an election year. We have election next year. This was an opportunity for them to get back at the ruling party because the same ruling party during Jonathan era said that, in fact, specifically President Muhammad Buhari said that, subsidy is a scam. So what are we going to call this one now? Are we going to call it another name?
You know that the person who headed the ad hoc committee is the Senate leader.
Okay,
Lawan.
Lawal,
so
yeah.
You can't even say, it's actually the opposition.
No, it's even
so
their
it
man.
is the Senate. The Senate is the Senate of the Nigerian people.
Yes.
So if any arm of government is doing what is not right,
Checks and
they have
balances.
the right to complain.
That's right.
And look, today, there is so much sleaze in the oil sector.
Too much.
Nobody knows how much we produce every day. Go and check. I challenge anyone to check. Today, the figures that the DPR will give you as what we are producing is different, is going to be different from what the NNPC will give you. They do not agree. It's been like that for years. It's still like that. I was reading about 2 weeks ago. They still did not agree on what we are producing.
Even on our daily consumption of fuel.
Yes,
they can never agree.
No,
you know,
many people believe, and you see, many people believe that what the NNPC says we are consuming daily, we are not consuming up to. Even governors raise hell about that.
That's right.
You know, and it is based on that subsidy is generated.
Because the figure they give
it's based on it.
because
it's from the from what you consume. That subsidy is generated.
Barrel per day. And finally, so that what we are actually consuming is just 35.
We have to move on now. We're hoping that they get to the root of this matter.
And that they investigate it, they must thoroughly investigate it.
Beyond probing it,
there shouldn't be any politicization.
When President Buhari took over, and he noticed that states were broke, struggling to pay salaries, one of the first money that he actually gave was the dividends from NLNG.
Yes.
If the former administration had spent it, would the president have found that?
And they also claim that they handled it well. They handled the spending better than the former administration. So the Senate must deal with this matter.
Let's move on now to other issues that we have this evening. In running the affairs of Nigeria, the country's leaders tend to be more reactive than proactive in tackling issues, hence problems they generate before they are fixed. The perennial gridlock on the Apapa Oshodi Expressway here in Lagos has reached an unbearable level, and some concerned authorities are now talking. Rising from its quarterly meeting in Osogbo, Osun State on Monday, the Southwest Governors Forum raised the alarm over the incessant gridlock on the road. The governors urged the federal government to find lasting solution to the problem, as it constitutes economic threat to the region and, of course, the country at large. The statistics here are very mind-boggling. Apapa said to handle more than 60% of Nigeria's cargo. And of course, Nigeria Customs Service in 2017 says it generated ₦1 trillion. I'm wondering why the Southwest governors are talking just now. What happened like 3, 4, 5 years ago?
Maybe they are just realizing now the enormity of the problem. Maybe, but this problem has been there. Efforts have been made in the past to solve it. And the big reason for this is that everyone comes to Lagos to lift fuel. Everyone comes to Lagos to lift fuel. It's not what we had in the past, where we moved petroleum products even by rail. It's no longer happening.
That's right.
We used to send petroleum products to the depots across the country.
Through the pipeline.
President Buhari, as Minister of Petroleum, constructed depots. I remember when we interviewed him, he said that he constructed depots. He didn't say he built refineries. Someone will fight you if you say Buhari didn't build a refinery. He didn't build any refinery.
No, he didn't.
But he admitted in our exclusive interview with him that he laid hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of pipelines, and he also built depots. So with those depots, we are supposed to be able to decongest Lagos, decongest the Apapa area. But everyone comes, from the north they come, they lift petrol. Whether it takes 3 days to get to Kano, it doesn't matter. Everyone comes here. So that is why you have that situation. Some of them will have been on the queue even for weeks. They do their bathing and other things right there.
Apparently.
You know? So until we solve that problem, then the road leading to the port itself is in a terrible state. The road has to be fixed. If we also improve our processes in the ports, this clearing of cargo will be faster, and we won't be having this kind of congestion. So I know that the current administration has shown so much determination. There was a time that even the vice president came here just to see this problem and find a way. They created a small corridor for other road users to use.
That's right.
Because clearly, you can't, there's nowhere to move these guys to. And for some of, even those who created, who offered their huge expanse of land for tankers to park and all that.
That's right.
We are seeing clearly that people are not maximally taking advantage of the opportunity. The tanker drivers and other truck owners would rather stay on the road. And they are doing incalculable damage to the road because these roads are not designed to carry dead weight. By the time you go and see the road and see how bad the road is. By the time they stay on the road for hours, they damage the road. And then you and I can't use it.
Bridges.
They've destroyed businesses in that area. If you go to that area, you see that many businesses, many shop owners have locked up. They've relocated to other parts of the city.
Let's take this call very quickly from Osun State. Good evening, Rahim.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Please go ahead with your
Well
contribution.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you people were talking about petroleum subsidy. You said they are not declaring whether there is subsidy or not. You people want the petroleum to be increased?
Nobody said so.
I just want to ask.
No, we have said
Government
it.
is trying to limit everything.
Can
to
you
145.
listen a little bit? Listen.
Yes.
I said a few minutes ago, I said if Buhari increases fuel price at this time, it will not be re-elected. And I said whatever name they choose to call it, they must keep the price where it is. Because the pain that fresh price increase will inflict on Nigerians will be huge. So we said it. What the thing is...
Then why are you people announcing that there is subsidy, they should probe them?
No, you didn't hear us correctly.
You didn't get
What
it.
we are saying is, whether we like it or not at this time, there will be subsidy. But don't tell us that there is no subsidy. Because when you are trying to pretend that there is no subsidy, that's why somebody will go and take money illegally and use it to pay for subsidy. Let's admit that there is subsidy. As long as we are still importing petroleum products, we will pay subsidy.
It's all right.
But the process must be transparent.
Rahim was successful to take us back there. Let's get back to this Apapa issue. The issue of course, the state governors are asking the federal government to do something about this. The federal government in May thereabout, we see some rehabilitation, or construction work going on that particular road. But beyond all of this, there's also the issues of logistics and regulation of trucks and port operations. And we've seen a lot of stakeholders meeting on, as regards this. What do you think is wrong?
Well, we don't have the political will to do the right thing concerning that. We all know what the problem is or what the problems are, and we know, once you know the problem, you should be able to know the solution, because it's the problem that will lead you to how you are going to solve it. Now, if you look at it, in the last 1 year, no fewer than 82 companies are relocated from that axis. Then I also remember that there was a time they talked to the president of the Cashew Association, Farmer of Nigeria, whereby he said at least no fewer than $10 billion are being lost every year since we have been battling that problem for the past 6 years, And if you look at it, there was also a time that Dangote did complain about the number of task forces that are operating in that axis. What they actually need in that area is just the police and LASMA. But you have some checkpoints, going on there. You have police mounting roadblocks, as a result of which the whole place will be jam-packed, and they will not allow those who can give them money to take the other road, thereby jam-packing the two sides of the road. These are some of the issues, and we know it, but we are finding it difficult to deal with it, which is one of the reasons why I don't understand.
You remember that in July, there was a joint task force set up at the Lagos State government, including security operatives, stakeholders from the maritime sector, and they were able to clear up the service line. I mean, why can't that be sustained?
Around that time, I happen to have driven to Apapa in the night. You know, journalists and our curiosity in the dead of the night. And what I saw was so alarming. I saw trailers parked on Ojuelegba Bridge, and that bridge is so fragile. Trailers parked on various bridges, and I said, is this what we are calling a solution? Trailers parked on these bridges? You know, I believe that I want to align with what Lagos State Governor Akinwumi Ambode said some months ago, that the federal government should now decisively begin to create new centers of excellence across the country. Lagos should not be the sole center of excellence. You know, that government should begin to decentralize some of these things, port operations and all of that. For instance, look at Calabar Port. The single issue has been the dredging of the channel into the port. What is holding that? You said some people misappropriated the money meant for it. Why not deal with it and dredge this channel? You have river ports. You have a river port at Onitsha. You have a river port at Barrow in Kogi State. You have other ports in Warri. You have the other ports that are underutilized.
I was thinking that some of those
ports. What is going on? Why not use some of those ports?
Outside, yes, that you can even say, okay, since everybody is coming to Lagos to take petrol, okay, those of you in the southeast and south, you go to One.
You even talked about depots. You talked about depots from
to One. So people from the southeast and south, they can go there.
They go there.
Or you use Warri. You know, instead of having a situation which everybody is coming to Lagos and then they will line up.
If you dredge the River Niger, why can't smaller vessels take petroleum products to the southeast through Onitsha River Port? The river port is there, lying there.
Gentlemen, we have to just wrap it here and take a look at our last issue for today. Budget figures and economic realities in Nigeria tend to be at variance. When the federal government reviewed some time ago that it spends 14,000 naira, we made mention of that earlier, to feed each inmate in Nigerian prisons daily, many took it with a pinch of salt. Now, another huge sum expended on another program has been brandished. Special advisor to the president on National Social Welfare Program, Mayam Owais, said the government feeds pupils with 6 million eggs and 594 cows weekly under its homegrown school feeding program across 26 states. According to her, the children, numbering about 9 million, are also being fed with 83 metric tons of fish weekly. Interestingly, Babajide, the vice president, also talked about this recently outside the country when he said over $183 million has so far been invested in the school feeding program. It appears there's a lot being done in this area that Nigerians are not aware of.
No, there are so many good things that this government is doing that Nigerians are not aware of, that they should actually be shouting about, that they hardly talk about. They spend so much time abusing the opposition, accusing the opposition of being behind killings,
blaming past governments,
blaming even the press. I think the president even blamed the press the other day. There are things that they should be talking about that they are doing, that they are really not doing. One day, I was with someone who works in the administration. We were discussing, and I was saying, look, the things that you do not talk about, because I remember a particular month when even non-oil revenue was actually a lot higher than revenue from oil. So, which is a sign that we are headed in the right direction. But these things are hardly talked about. We dissipate so much energy on politics, abusing people, talking about the past, believing that it's only by talking about the past that we can actually woo voters. And I've said, look, for me, as a perception, as a perception molder, I do not think that the only way by which you can attain victory is to talk about the past. Because I can draw inferences, I can point to people who achieved victory, who took over from bad government, who attained victory without necessarily being negatively nostalgic about the past. But there's little that one can do once people have made up their minds that this is the direction that they want to go. Honestly, even with a gun to their neck, they will not listen to you. No, I see them, and everybody, the high and the mighty, the low and the high in the government. This is the strategy, is kind of one-track strategy that they have adopted. So if they are saying, look, I remember the VP, before the election, I attended an event where the VP outlined the plans of the incoming administration, and he was talking about this school feeding program because it had been trialed in Osun, and he said, we are ready to take on board this strategy. Were you there that day at Protea?
I think
And
yes.
you should have been there. And it was telling us this is the way we'll do it. We are confident that it will work. We'll make it a national thing. So they have succeeded to a large extent, although I know that there are still areas
Some issues.
in which we really need to improve. It has not really spread to...
It's still within 26 states now.
Yes, and
Yeah.
even in the 26 states, there are many schools that are still left behind.
Yes.
So there's room for improvement.
That's right.
But whichever way you look at it, even this school feeding program has improved the enrollment.
That's
Because
right.
where parents are sure that, oh, if they go to school, at least they will be fed. They will be fed 2 times. Definitely they will adopt it. Remember, even the confab actually suggested that this thing should be done across the country. So that speaks to the fact that this is a very good program. All that they need to do is to modify it, make it a lot even better in terms of the implementation than they are doing. And then the things that they do that are good, they should harp on those things and not bother themselves so much about what the PDP
what took place
has failed to do.
in the past. Well, it's also very interesting to note that at the same time, Nigeria still has a high number of children who are out of school. But very interesting is the fact that the special advisor made mention of this when a delegation from DRC came to Nigeria to learn from the social intervention program. They say they have hired 95,000 cooks, 100,000 smallholder farmers linked to the program, and it goes on and on like that. What exactly would you say, how important is this at such a time like this for Nigeria?
It is quite important in the sense like Jide said, number one, it will increase the enrollment of pupils in the school. When parents are sure that at least my child will have a decent meal once he goes to school, it's also it's good for us because of the fact that as we speak, Nigeria has the highest number of children out of school in the whole world. This is one of the ways with which we can bring people's children back to school. Not only that, a lot of farmers are now laughing all the way to the bank because of the fact that they have been engaged. They can make supplies, do a lot of things. This is also, in a way, also affect the rate of employment because those farmers, once they have more money, they will employ more people.
That's right.
As we speak now, the number of eggs that we produce in the country is not even enough. And this is one of the reasons why it's not enough, because a lot of those eggs are being bought.
Let me quickly hear
Because of this
from
program.
Emeka before we wrap up. How come the numbers do not tally? We seem to be doing very well in the social intervention program, but we still have the highest number of children out of school. The vice president said currently we're feeding 9,300,892 pupils in 49,837 public primary schools in 26 states of
And
the
then
country.
you have over 10 million out of school children in the north. And then when you now add other places, then something is wrong. You see, yes, the program on its own, I like a program that seeks to improve the nutritional needs of children in Nigeria, because that is one major drawback, that's one major problem in developing countries, nutrition. But I think government needs to sit down and find how it can make this program generate more jobs, and so that the parents of these children can also be part of improving the nutritional needs of their children. It doesn't look like it's just, okay, we send them to school, it's government that feeds them. When they come back, there is no contribution from the parents.
We have to go now. Emeka Madunago, thank you for joining us. Wahid Bakare, it's a pleasure to have you. Babajide Kolade Otitoju, thank you for coming on the show. And that's all on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I am Nifemi Okuntoye. Bye for now and God bless Nigeria.